It's the early 50s and New York is riddled with dark figures and criminal activities. Murder, gang organization, corruption. That's the world I was introduced to when I sat down to play an early demo build of Blacksad Under the Skin. The world of narrative adventure games lost a leader when Telltale Games shut down in October 2018. The Telltale title, A Wolf Among Us, was another comic-inspired adventure that infused fantasy with reality. The focus in this game was mostly on classic fairy tale creatures and figures adjusting to a modern society while facing their own magical problems. Blacksad, however, shines a light on real problems faced in the 1950s, while introducing a universe filled with anthropomorphic characters. One of the creators of the comics told Public Radio International that the purpose of the anthropomorphic characters was to highlight the traits each animal is associated with in popular culture. Like the fox is intelligent, the wolf is cruel and ruthless, the pig is stupid, and the monkey is envious. I was curious to see how much of the comics world would be included in Blacksad, and was happily surprised to see that the comics universe was successfully recreated. The color palette appears to have been lifted from the pages of the comics into the game environment, and the city background is graffitied and properly grungy. The comics revealed a world of corruption and real-life problems that were rampant in the early 50s. The issues of racial tension, political conspiracies, and gang violence were not lost in the translation of the video game rendition of this area. This is most notably reinforced when I first walked through the boxing gym's changing room, where an insensitive racial slur scrawled out in red paint across a character's locker. When I asked the developers why they decided to keep that part of the universe in the game, they answered that the comics showcase the realism of the time period in such a great way that the developers wanted to keep it the way the author intended. When a fan of the comics plays the game, they will be transported inside the creative world of Blacksad, and new players will be introduced to a unique take on old New York. In sitting down and pressing start, I found myself immediately thrown into the bleak world of Blacksad, as the screen opened to the interior of a boxing gym with a hanged lifeless body swaying in the corner of my vision. The screen fades into the reveal of the messy office of John Blacksad, Private Detective. He's smoking by the window and offers me a narrated reflection on how he feels his life is slowly turning to shambles. Before I'm able to even start to wonder what kind of recent trauma he might have gone through, Blacksad's office door slams open, and he's violently approached by an angry rhino.
I'm gonna kill you!
The game wastes no time in throwing players into the story and mechanics, which is how I discovered how precise you need to be with QuickTime events to succeed. There's a visual prompt in the form of a white circle with a small ring of gray in the middle over the button you're supposed to press. There's also a thin white circle that shrinks down over it all that indicates the timing you should hit the button on screen. It was a bit rough to discern the white part of the circle from the gray since they're so close in color, and everyone in the demo room ended up failing a few times before finally getting it down. If you fail to hit the right button at the exact time the ring shrinks to that gray ring, you might find your Blacksad blasted in the gut with a fatal bullet. However, the dialogue options offer more choices than just evasion, although avoiding conversation is a completely viable option. One of the first few things I was confronted with in the demo was picking the kind of personality Blacksad would take on. I could choose to become a more sensitive person, or turn more callous and cynical. The choices you make will change the way other characters interact with you. If you decide to be insensitive and cold to someone, they might not be as willing to open up to you later on. The moral decisions he was posed with became questions for myself to fret over. Was it a good idea to let that man go? Should I have taken the money?
What do you say? Deal?
The most interesting struggle I had with playing Blacksad was making decisions that I felt good about. With games that offer multi-choice dialogue options, players should feel like their actions are challenged. Life is rarely ever black and white, and the decisions you make in Blacksad will have you dip uncomfortably close to that gray area quite often. The demo showcased about 2 hours of introductory gameplay, which revealed the mechanics of investigation. I was presented with the case of Robert Yale, a boxer on the rise, who's gone missing before the most important fight of his career. Blacksad suspects the death of Joe Dunn, the owner of the boxing club Yale trained at, is tied to the disappearance. With each piece of hard and circumstantial evidence I uncovered, I found that I could go into a deduction mode to see what clues I could piece together. In order to go into your collection of gathered evidence, you hit a button that brings Blacksad into a thinking pose with his hand under his chin, and you enter his mind where each of the clues are floating around. I could take factual evidence I found and pair it with something a character revealed indirectly through their actions or phrasing, which then furthers the investigation through what's deduced. In addition to taking testimonies, Blacksad has the ability to scrutinize body language through a mode that heightens his visual senses. His vision switches to a very noir black and white filter, where you can zoom in and look at someone or an object in detail.
A shamrock? Is he Irish?
In this mode, Blacksad is even able to listen to someone's heart rate. I felt like I was playing through the eyes of a seasoned detective, and successfully piecing bits of the investigation and unlocking the next question was extremely satisfying. While the gameplay mechanics of picking up on clues and interrogating people was extremely engaging, I'd find myself thrown out of the experience when Blacksad would walk into walls or flatly deliver a voice line.
What the hell are you doing here?
Having read bits of the first comic, I really appreciated the actor choice for Blacksad's voice, since his gravelly narration helps set the tone of his story.
John Blacksad, Private Eye. Would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
But some of the voice acting by Blacksad and other characters would sound hollow and unfeeling, making emotional scenes in the game almost feel jarring and out of sync.
And I saw him, hanging there, like a baby mobile over a crib.
Keeping in mind that it was an early demo build, I understood that it would have bugs and performance hitches, but I found myself getting frustrated with the slow pace that Blacksad would trudge at just to get from one point to another, and he would often run into walls or corners of objects in his way as if he was a moth drawn to an open light. If I had to backtrack to a previous area to sniff out some clues I might have missed, the walk back would often make me zone out for a moment. The game was originally set to release in September, but has now been pushed back to December, so hopefully this is a sign of more updates and improvements to come. Blacksad Under the Skin is a raw, unfiltered take on the corruption of society and the moral deliberations of a grizzled private detective. Despite the technical hiccups, I found myself wanting more of the game after 2 hours of playing it, and I'm really excited to see what Pendulo Studios does with the full release of Blacksad. And as always, for more, keep it here on IGN.